On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk the AV over IP revolution, and the new Apple TV has HDR and Dolby Vision. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 273. Don't let things get gummy.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Peerless AV, driving technology through innovation.
Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by three of my good friends. First, we have the one and only Haggai Feiner. He's the president of Access Networks. How you doing, Haggai?
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well.
Thank you for being here, sir. Then we have Mr. Richard Fergosa. He is the principal at Fergosa Design. How are you?
Good. Mellow West Coast greetings. It looks like at least on my screen, I'm on the left side of the coast along with a guy. So, working well. I'm glad we were able to come in and pinch hit.
Thank you so much. Then we have Katie McGregor-Bennett. She's the president of KMB Communications. How you doing, Katie?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. You know, I've been planning for this for a very long time. I think it's about 6.5 minutes. So,
yep,
yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
No, thanks to Katie and Rich for filling in. Joe was scheduled, but unfortunately he had to deal with some medical stuff. He'll be fine. Family will be fine. But, you know, stuff happens. So thanks to the community for hooking us up. All right, let's jump in to a story that comes to us from CE Pro, how to prepare for the AV over IP revolution. If you haven't heard, AV over IP is a thing. It's important. It's coming to residential. It's here. It's in residential AV. I do love this article. It gives a real good overview of essentially how to prepare for AV over IP, as you can imagine, and going through a couple of the main points, especially things like scaling and how you can start and where you can go from that. Haggai, you are the perfect person for this. It's like we handpicked you for this article.
Thank you.
You're welcome. When you see articles like this, when you see the conversations going around forums and all the messaging platforms that exist in our community, for the most part, most integrators are on board with the concept of this. Not every integrator has jumped in with both feet to make this an actual part of their business. How do you encourage and caution dealers to make the jump into AV over IP?
Encourage and caution. I think this is really discussed in the article itself. So big props to Brandon White from Vanco for putting this together. I think his read on the market is fairly accurate. The encouragement is that I believe that video distribution is exclusively going in this direction, meaning ultimately, you know, if we went from coax cables to HDMI to now IP, for example, I think the cables are going to get eliminated ultimately, and we will be left with network-based offering or streaming, you know, or both, you know, to some degree, a combination of the two. And so the writing's on the wall as far as I'm concerned. But again, easy for me to talk because I've seen the writing on the wall a long time ago. I would say on smaller projects, probably easier to handle. Where we've seen the limits being pushed with inside access is when you're talking about very large deployments. You're talking about multiple nodes, many TVs, and then you're trying to squeeze content and turn everything on at the same time. And all of a sudden you realize that even that 10 gig uplink that you had between switches is not good enough anymore, right? Because that's being squeezed. And what do you do when you have 11 nodes of 1 gig on each switch, and those two switches have a 10 gig link and it's not enough? So we can go to 40 gig, we can go to 100 gig. I think the biggest lesson for me is that those large projects, as much as we've planned before for those deployments, and we've created documentation and IP schemes and VLANs, when it comes to AV over IP and video distribution going exclusively to the network, that requires an extra layer of planning beyond just where those devices are going to plug, but how's everything going to work together as a cohesive system when you deliver that to the client. And we've seen, your pre-wire has to change, your equipment layout has to change, some technologies within those switches are changing. And so when you're selling this job today, and maybe you're expecting, if it's a big sprawling estate, probably a year or two from now to go install, even between now and then, some things are going to change. Mm-hmm. But I can tell that ultimately there are a lot more tools in the toolbox that we see to help us deal with those challenges than what historically you've had with other distribution systems where you're really canned into whatever the manufacturer gives you. The network has a lot of tools to deal both with troubleshooting and with the capacity that is required. Question is, are integrators independently going to be able to take on this burden on their own? And I could tell you, obviously, that's part of the reason Access Networks was created. So,
very good, Mr. Fregosa. When you see this, the Haggai did a really good job of covering kind of the ultra high end, the large scales where those choke points come. On the low side, is there actually a business case for it to jump in from the low end or from an entry level and go AV over IP? Or does it just make more sense to go to a localized solution where you're hanging things off a display, as everyone has essentially gone streaming? It limits the network load, it limits the complexity. Is that kind of the future for the entry level of AV over IP?
It goes back to your business model. Are you going to put yourself in a position where you are having to very quickly and cost effectively deploy solutions that aren't yours at low profit margins, to no profit margins in that solution, and deliver a result that's being pushed by the telcos, that's being pushed by the cable companies, that's being pushed by the satellite TV providers? That if that's your model, and some dealers are doing it successfully, right? Some dealers are saying, yeah, we'll do 20 installs, every other day, and we'll push through, and this is how we work, and this is our process, right? We churn and burn. And so there's room for that in this market. I think that as you determine if your role from a technology advisor standpoint becomes a matter of saying, yes, this is an option, this is a cost-effective option, and these are the compromises. Because again, it all comes back down to looking at your client, who you are as a company. Now, AV over IP, there's going to be a certain point where you have no choice. The point-to-point products, the products that, and Haggai called it, right? We started out originally with coax. We were doing RF distribution. Then we went to point-to-point composite, S-video, component. Then we moved to HDMI, digital over Cat5 in a point-to-point without an IP version. And then now AV over IP. I mean, it's a progression of the technology. And manufacturers are going to look at it and say, we're selling less of these. So there's going to be a point that they're going to sunset the product. So you may not necessarily have a choice in terms of your product offering. So you have to take a look and say, am I either going to let the telcos provide all of these services and I come in and I'm the hookup guy, or are we going to provide managed services, provide the ease of use, the what we view as the reliability, the convenience features, the ability to synchronize a show across an entire estate?
So I would say we could do both while also selling a lighting solution and a shading solution and whatever else is needed for the project based on the homeowner need and expectation. Meaning, sure, these things are changing and we're going IP on video distribution. And maybe in years past, the video distribution system was the most expensive ticket on the project. But today, that reality is changing. And so we need to continue and adapt as we have in the past.
Yeah, very good. Katie, following up on this, one of the parts of the article that I do appreciate is the IT opt-out. We're seeing, to Haggai's point, to Rich's point, a lot of people are, quote-unquote, happy to do your network. And they may not really know what they're doing beyond configuring that cable co modem and layer one switch. What is the point that most integration firms can either train up to be a proper network engineer for this world versus going out and hiring a network engineer that may or may not, because there's a it's a very small list of manufacturers and independent contractors, shall we say, that can do network engineering on a high level, but that's focused on residential and not traditional corporate IT. Where's that disconnect? Where's that move? Or are we going to see a lot more companies spurn out kind of like, hey guys?
No, we're not going to see a lot more companies like Access Network spurring out because they're fitting the need of the integration community so well. Small plug there. No, but to kind of a multifold answer to your question is I think that there's what Rich mentioned a minute ago is you got to look at your business model, and I think that first and foremost is look at your business model and what can you take in-house or continue to offer and serve to this level of expertise where you're willing to be that end-all resource, or do you need to have an outsource community available to you for those projects that deem worthy of the additional level of service? And as a business owner, principal, executive team, you really just need to take a look at the model and what will it best support and what can you afford to do. The good news is, and kind of my joking plug at the beginning for Access, but there are so many manufacturers now in the industry that have taken design services or design consulting under their wing and are offering that to the integration community, in many cases free of charge. They are there to help you put together these solutions in such a way that they will perform well on the other end. Obviously, it's not just as easy as involving just one manufacturer when you're talking about all of the AV gear that's potentially connected. But if you start with a strong foundation and get that right, it's my belief that then the additional pieces, components and devices on top of it will inherently be in a position to perform and continue performing optimally. There's there's the bolt on to it. So it's like once you get the install done, then what do you do about service and support? And I think that's part of looking at the model is once the project is done or this phase of the project is done, then does it make sense for you as the installing integration firm to be the one to continue doing the support, or is it kind of have you kind of reached your cap, and at that point do you need to find somebody to sort of hand that ongoing relationship off? Again, it depends on the project and it depends on the scope of your business. As a communicator and someone who works with brands, it's just I think you just need to look at your model and be true to your brand. What are you guys trying? You guys, gals, your team. What are you trying to accomplish? And can you do that in house? And does it make sense financially, emotionally? All of those. Check those boxes.
I just wanted to jump in on one quick thing about this that a guy said. About the hybrid model. We keep talking about video over IP because it's the sexy part of it, right? Everybody's got these streaming devices. Audio over IP in the Resi space is quickly accelerating. I am seeing a whole lot more functional, reliable, scalable AES 67 and Dante solutions that are out there. Personally, from a consultant standpoint, I find that I am specifying more professional, commercial, standardized products because they support this hub and spoke model. Because the big problem is you say, okay, well, great, you've got your local cable box, you've got your local Apple TV, whatever you have in a room. And if that client asks you, well, I've got a Super Bowl party or I've got an Oscars party, how do I play this over this 18-room stereo system that you sold me? Let me get back to you on that. Now we can say, great, with these solutions, we have the ability to go ahead and, it will follow you or it'll spread any way across. And I think that that's something that for the CI market, again, we keep talking about resi-mercial. You have to be willing to embrace it. The way that you've been selling it is not the way you're going to continue selling it if you want to stay in business.
We covered Dante specifically in the residential space a couple of months ago. We'd have to look it up to see exactly where that was. And before we covered it, I reached out to a lot of integrators I knew just to see who was playing with it. And the response I got back was, shall we say, lackluster. And in a couple conversations about it, when I got the lackluster response, I kind of did the, do you know what it is though? Like, do you actually understand what we're talking about? Oh, yeah. Like, I feel like you don't, because if you did, you'd be way more excited about this than you are. I don't know if that's changed yet. It's coming. I'm very excited for it because we use it all the time in commercial. All right, let's change topics, sort of, kind of, a little bit. Coming to us from Residential Tech Today and Michael Heiss, at last an Apple TV with 4K HDR and Dolby Vision with 60 frames per second and a high frame rate playback. Before we jump into this, I'm super excited about the Apple TV, but I would be remiss if I... Why are you laughing already, Haggai? You don't know what I'm going to say.
Well, but when you say but, you're kind of canceling what you just said, so go ahead.
I am excited. I am very excited.
But...
I would be remiss...
And...
I would be remiss if I did not express my deep love for the new colored iMacs. It takes me back to, I believe, the G2s. And the candy-colored domes of wonderment. I'm so excited.
And every elementary school lined up with the candy-colored iMacs in your classroom.
Oh, yes.
The blues and the oranges and the pinks.
I went to a public school. We didn't have Macs because it was a public school. But...
It was in Canada.
Stop it. Did anyone... Gosh, we're never going to get to this. Did anyone see the report of... There was a town in BC that lost their network, both cable and ISPs, because beavers...
Because the beavers...
ate through the fiber. It was... And I feel like...
The struggle is real. Sometimes you just don't even know what's going to...
We lost one of the entire LTE networks on Monday last week. Or sorry, Tuesday last week.
Keep going and you're going to lose all your subscribers. Let's go.
Yeah, all right. Sorry. Haggai's keeping us on
most
right.
of them.
All right. So if you missed it, the new Apple TV looks the same, costs the same, but it adds a cool new remote and Dolby Vision as well as we said, HDR. And one really cool feature where you can hold the phone up to your TV using the LiDAR light sensors in the front of your iPhone 12, I believe, and it will calibrate the Apple TV for quote-unquote optimum performance. Haggai's not impressed with that, but I am, so there you go. Rich, when you see this, Apple has been a little, shall we say, slow, tardy with some of their feature sets. They're a little bit behind some of the Rokus and some of the other players, but they seem to, when they do bring it, have that feature set be a little bit more polished, a little bit more user-friendly, functional, et cetera, et cetera. Is this enough for them to kind of regain the crown as that proper top shelf media streaming device that they so want to be? Or is it still just a hobby?
You know, Apple's position always was, when they were looking at the product, they didn't want to sell 10,000 of them. They wanted to sell 100 million of them. Yeah, that's Apple's always goal, right? Is that scale? Can you push it throughout? I will say this about Apple. They are likely going to create some groundswell for HDR and Dolby Vision that the combined rest of our industry has pretty much failed miserably being able to get any type of overall consumer acceptance where they ask for it. I can guarantee that once these units start selling, that integrators will get questions from the end user about HDR, about Dolby Vision. Though the marketing machine behind Apple, you just can't discredit it. So regardless of whether there were other products that technically do it better, from the marketing side, again, 8K is something that we have out there. We're not doing a great job talking about that. HDR has been around for quite some time. All of the different flavors of it. And this is an option where, again, like I'd say that for integrators, like, jump on it. Absolutely. Because you can quickly go to a client and say, hey, by the way, have you heard there's a new Apple TV and it does HDR? And your client comes back and says, what do you mean about HDR? And you go, remember when I told you about these new TVs? And again, this in this industry now, you have to be more actively proactive about putting yourself back to the front of the line again with these consumer low-cost products in order to leverage your entire system ecosystem. I think a guy's going to agree there, which is use any angle you can to get back in the door. Because the minute you get in there, start selling everything else that goes with it.
That's right. That's right. So let's say in our house, we're designing a pretty cool family room because we don't have separate rooms. It's just one big family room where the TV is going to be. But we've widened the fireplace so that we can get a bigger TV in there. We put in some custom built James speakers next to the TV so we can have some, real built-in speakers to the fireplace so that they have a back box and it's, a more immersive experience. But we have speakers all over the ceiling. So I would love to tie in one of those new Apple TVs to that system. And I feel like it costs them profit. How much money is the integrator making on the Apple TV? Who cares? Because all their money is being made in integration, control, audio, and they're selling us all those products. So I think we're going to continue and take what the market gives us as far as tech advancements in the DIY side of things and apply them to our systems to achieve this insane end result. Because I know whoever comes in and watches TV with us is going to have a very different experience than they would otherwise, watching a TV with built-in speakers at home.
Definitely. Katie, one of the debates that I've had for years is I've always been an Apple TV fan as the product, not the streaming service or the app or, anyways, marketing. But what always comes up is you hear integrators go on and say, well, the Roku has better control or it does this or it does that. And I always come back to, maybe it's my love affair with Apple that you saw before Haggai yelled at me. I always come back to the fact that Apple's marketing outshines anything that I'm ever going to tell somebody. I can tell them the Roku controls better with their remote system. They're going to say 9 times out of 10, yeah, but I want the Apple TV because I've got an iPhone. What is the best approach that an integrator can take to take a mass market device from a behemoth of a company like Apple, who doesn't care if an integrator ever sells an Apple TV, could care less than Amazon cares if you sell an Echo, but take advantage of that marketing power and say, hey, this is the device you want. It's going to make everything look better. Is there an opportunity there, or is it just tagging yourself to a, product that you can buy anywhere?
So, okay, I don't want to get slaughtered over this for my custom installation brothers and sisters, but I think much to Haggai and Rich's point, this is that you're not going to change the behavior of the consumer in terms of what camp they're firmly planted in, whether Android or iOS. So embrace the fact that they already have a relationship potentially with Apple that is potentially much more significant than the relationship that they have with you, only by virtue of the fact that they're using their phone all day long for 100 different things or more, right? So, I think there's a lot of conversation just in marketing about meeting your customer where they are. I take that and sort of translate that a bit as, kind of resist the urge to fight it and lean in, meet your customer where they are and do what you do so well, which is create the custom solution around that thing and create a much better, a much more immersive, much more robust experience. And that's the thing that you and only you can do and bring to the table in a way that you and your company do it. To me, it really shouldn't matter that there's an Apple TV at the core of that thing or not. Meet your customers where they are. If it's something that they're interested in, it's something that their friends have, it would be awkward for them not to have it, and it's super easy. All of those, checking boxes again, it checks the boxes. So just embrace it, but then build your service and support and your product base around it so that you're making up potentially for what you might be losing. Just look past the fact that it's a mainstream thing. We have to accept that mainstream has a role in custom. It's just a matter of what you do to take and elevate and amplify, just like we do in communications. Elevate and amplify which that thing can do, and really show what you can bring to the table and make that be the thing that shines through. That's my recommendation. I don't know if it really answers the question per se as you intended, but
No, you're good. All right, we are going to leave it there. Thank you all for joining us. Haggai, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Access Networks, where can they do that?
Twitter is probably best because I'm always available on Twitter. So my handle is Haggai Finer.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Mr. Fregosa, thank you for joining us. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Fregosa Design, where can they do that?
You can type my name into the interwebs, but best place probably is Twitter, @rfregosa. You can also find the company at Fregosa Design. But first and foremost, as I will always say, the best place I would hope you find me is on AVNation.tv and our suite of shows. Hopefully you'll join us on our show, A State of Control, with my partner Steve Greenblatt, where we talk about the automation side of this thing here on ResiWeek with my friend. But most importantly, find me by supporting our sponsors. Come on now. Some brothers gotta eat.
Such a great plug, man. Wow.
Wow.
Puts mine to shame. Katie, my friend, thank you for joining us last minute. If people want to connect with you, learn more about KMB, where can they do that?
Yeah. So KMB Communications, you find us all over the sphere. You just KMB Communications, look for us there. Katie McGregor Bennett, again, to look for me and you find me. My handles are different all over the place because, and once you get married, things get gummy, and that's your PSA for the day. Don't let it get gummy. Figure out your handles to begin with before you get married. I just had to keep going because Rich's was so good. So, he was so detailed, Yeah.
I get it. All right.
Yeah. How about you, Matt?
How about me? Mine was easy. I didn't have to change my name, and my wife didn't technically have to change hers either. It's amazing. When you marry somebody who's already named Scott, it just happens. All right. Thank you.
Marry your cousin.
Say what?
When do you marry your cousin?
Well, All right. Canada, what are you going to do? She's from New York. We're not related. Stop it.
That's another show another day.
All right. This show is going to be awesome. Mitchell, please don't edit anything. Just leave it straight up. All right. Thank you all for joining. This is as awesome as my Schitt's Creek Twitter storm that I started and literally responded for a week with nothing but a Schitt's Creek meme. So you're going to get one at the end of the show because that's how it is. All right. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me and find out more about Schitt's Creek, you can do it at Matt D. Scott on Twitter. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.